In this video, we're going to take a look at something that I call the 3 advantages in poker. And this is a way that we can utilize various advantages in our game to help us to win a poker hand. Now, there are definitely a lot more advantages than just the 3 advantages that we have listed here on the screen, but this is just a very simplistic way to look at it from a high level perspective. So there is a skill advantage, a positional advantage that we already talked about on the last slide, and card advantage. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. So these 3 advantages, what are they? Well, card advantage, this is pretty basic and straightforward, right? This is the overall relative strength of our starting hand. For example, pocket aces versus 7 deuce. And when people say card advantage, we can also say range advantage as well, because we're playing a range of hands. We're not just playing a particular hand in any specific position. So card advantage, any player can have card advantage. A good player, a mediocre player, a great player, and a brand new player to the game. Any sort of a player can have card advantage because, like I said earlier in the course, is that in regards to the cards that are dealt to us, we don't know what they are. So for example, a brand new opponent that just came to the table, it's their first time playing poker, they could be dealt pocket aces, in the very next hand, pocket kings, in the very next hand, pocket queens, and us sitting there at the table, we could just be dealt junk. So that's card advantage. The first advantage. Skill advantage, well, this is something that a good player is going to be able to utilize. And when we talk about skill advantage, we're talking about being able to outplay our opponent via developing and learning strategies to play good both pre-flop and post-flop. So essentially everything that you're going to learn in this course is going to give you skill advantage over your opponents. And then lastly, positional advantage, and this really is a subset of skill advantage if we think about it, because we need to understand what position is, we need to be able to leverage it within our skill sets, so it really is a subset of skill advantage, but it's so important that I have it listed separately. So it's utilizing the power position to take control of a hand, whether we're value betting or we're bluffing. So why is this important? Well, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this from the perspective of card advantage. So let's say that I'm a brand new poker player. I sit down at the table and I'm being dealt good cards. Let's say that I'm being dealt in hands like king, queen, pocket tens, ace, jack, so forth. Good hands, right? Well, card advantage isn't everything. Because even though somebody's getting good cards, you have to know how to play them both pre-flop and post-flop, because you're not always going to make a good hand. Sometimes you're not going to make a good hand, and so then when you're not making a good hand, how do you play those hands? Well, that's where skill advantage comes into play. Now on the flip side, what if we decide to play bad cards? Well, again, we need to know how to play those bad cards. And when I say bad cards, these are more so speculative cards or cards that just aren't as good as our strongest cards. So a good player can leverage or use their combination of skill plus positional advantage to overcome card advantage. And this is important, especially when we look at the power position and we look at how much money we can make playing from the cutoff and the button versus under the gun when we're playing a tighter, stronger range. It's because we're using our skill advantage and our positional advantage to overcome a lack of card advantage. So for example, poker pros can play speculative hands. And when I say speculative hands, I'm talking about hands like suited connectors, hands like ace deuce suited to ace 5 suited, weaker king X hands, such as maybe like a king 8 suited. So hands that really aren't that great. They're speculative, weaker hands. They can play those speculative hands in position, and they can utilize their skill advantage to outplay opponents that are out of position to them with potentially better hole cards. So it really doesn't mean that if you just get good cards that you're always going to win. You have to know how to play those good cards. You have to know how to use skill advantage plus positional advantage. And all this stuff is stuff that you're going to learn in this course as you progress in the course. So as we start going through the various different sections in the course, we talk about our specific strategies for playing this game of No Limit Texas Hold'em that we all love to play. That's where you're going to start to develop your skill advantage and your positional advantage. So that's our short lecture on the concept of the 3 advantages. And let's go back to the first slide. So skill advantage, position advantage, and card advantage. So if you have any questions, let me know. If not, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.